Wireless Logic joining us now. Hi, Justin. How are you? Justin, you're on mute.
Yep. Hi, Paul. Sorry about that. You well?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, thanks for joining us. Justin, Wireless Logic. As we were chatting earlier, I've worked with Wireless Logic since 2013, on and off, and I've got some great friends there. Really interesting company. One of the things, we crossed paths over the past few weeks when we were talking about doing this talk. Doing a bit of research on yourself, like I do like to do with most speakers. Found it really interesting that you were educated in sports science. So how did you make that progression from sports science to IoT?
Yeah, no, good question. So I think, as most people do, coming out of university was challenging to find a role within what I studied in. So I randomly stumbled across Wireless Logic, and I think after the first interview, I was very impressed with the leadership team and the vision and the excitement around, back in those days, M2M, which, as you know, Paul, was machine to machine. So I think over the 13-year period that I've been at Wireless Logic, you start to realize the IoT opportunities are endless. So I think it was a bit of a punt, but ultimately it's been a success story and one that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, and I mean, from the conversation we had earlier, you've been working on some absolutely fantastic projects there. So what do you believe will be the next big leaps in IoT adoption?
Yeah, good question. I think because we are so involved in many horizontal markets across IoT, there's kind of a mixture. So I think with everything that's happening with COVID at the moment, we've seen, off the back of this, we've seen lots of exciting new projects come into play. So we've seen lots of occupancy management, social distancing measures, so people starting to do traffic management, pedestrian counting. But we've also seen lots of things improve, such as building management solutions, security, and e-mobility. If you guys have been reading lots of press recently, e-mobility around EV charging, e-scooters, the opportunities are, like I said, are endless, and every day there seems to be a new opportunity to put our solutions into. So it's very broad, but it's one that we find quite exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at the numbers, we had a great talk a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, in regards to, there was the 50 billion devices forecasted by 2020, and it's a long way off of that. And there's a number of businesses that myself and the team have been validating with over the past year, and starting to discover there's a lot of talk about, we're adopting IoT. And what they mean is they've got about 3 Raspberry Pis in the office connected to a sensor. What do you find as the common stall points with adoption and the projects that you guys get involved in? Where's the stumble point?
Yeah, every day really. I think the challenge is education around IoT. I think people just seem to think an internet connection is, just a SIM card down the shop or from a consumer grade. I think what we need to do is, and what we've been doing over a vast period of time now, is educating customers that machine-to-machine IoT, it's all about the connection, it's about the management, the platforms, and the value-added services. So I think people are starting to realize there's a lot more to it than just a SIM card, in effect. So I think it's pulled down to us and the market being educated in certain vertical sectors.
Would you agree it's also down to educational culture as well, that some of the resistance is it's something new and something to having to deal with. Some of it's fear of people losing their jobs to the machines by efficiencies being created, which means that headcount could be reduced. Have you experienced some of that resistance as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen lots of, like I said, from COVID, we've seen lots of, I think people are starting to look at ways they can strip out cost. And ultimately, with you know, what we're doing now, people are starting to realize, you know, without putting someone in a van, an engineer in a van, there's the ability to provide remote access for a vending machine. Or there's an opportunity to put thermostat monitoring in place for social housing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ideas where we can deliver technology that mitigates and sometimes takes the human aspect out of that. So yeah, we have seen that side of it.
Yeah. So how are wireless logic enabling businesses to progress and adopt the technology more efficiently and quicker?
Yeah, so we work with systems integrators and partners, OEMs, to deliver bespoke offerings. So our main driver is around SIM card connectivity, but we're a managed service provider on top of that as well. So we're a global organization, but we typically work with, you know, the likes of Rover Robotics and partners where we're effectively the final piece of the jigsaw, gluing that software, hardware, OEM device all as one. Because without the connectivity piece, to some extent, you know, it's a challenge. So we provide solutions into multiple devices.
Excellent. Excellent. I think that leads on quite nicely to your presentation, Justin.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
Just while Justin's getting started, if anybody has any questions, as with Nick, please do put them in chat or give them a hold to the end, and we'll share them with Justin.
Yeah, fab. So as we were discussing, Paul, I thought it would be a good idea to highlight one of the most rewarding sectors we have within IoT, which is ANPR. So I think it would be a good, we can go into lots of topics within IoT, but ANPR seems to be one that we're doing a good job in, and it's one that's certainly growing across a number of niche sections within ANPR. So yeah, just going into wireless logic again. So we've been going 20 years now. So 1999 was when the company first was founded by the current CEO, Oliver Tucker. And we have 35 mobile network operators that we're using to effectively deliver into IoT applications. Our HQ is in Henley-on-Thames, and we have 5 other subsidiaries within our European offices, so France, Germany, and Spain, the Nordics. And I think at present we've got just over 10,000 customers using our connectivity options across all ranges of applications. And I think I was the 8th one in many years ago, 13 years ago, but now we've got a headcount, I think it's just over 250 across lots of countries, and we've also got acquisitions part of the group as well, which we've started to put in place over the last 3 to 5 years. So ANPR, what is it? I think you asked that, Paul, last week. So ANPR is automatic number plate recognition. We see this as enforcement, and ANPR is quite broad, but we've typically always over the last 5-10 years broken it down into 3 kind of niche kind of areas. So where you've got your car park management operators, if we start there first, these are guys that typically would put a turnkey solution in place for big retail chains, outlet stores, train stations, and their job is ultimately to manage the car parks on behalf of these customers. You've probably seen over the last couple of years, entry and exit monitoring via ANPR cameras. And it's all about that customer experience where if people want to go to supermarkets, they can find a space. And ultimately, if you're abusing the system and parking for 5 hours, then you're not really using their stores, etc. So we have in the region of about 30 car park management operators, all using Wireless Logic's managed services. So we've got good success stories there. The second one, which we've come across, is intelligent traffic solutions. So this would cover kind of your systems integrators and partners that would go out to towns and cities and work with councils to deliver specific projects to mitigate traffic flow within certain areas. So what we've seen across the last 5 years or so is bespoke applications, but delivering enforcement amongst, I'll give you an example, one-way systems, grid boxes, cycle lanes, bus lanes, speeding around schools, and ultimately, as you see on motorways, 50 miles per hour average speed checks. So these guys are typically more around traffic management. And my third topic is around blue light services. We've had probably 3 or 4 huge forces come to Wireless Logic within the last couple of years, needing more than what they were getting. So it was more about how we can assist with their mobile devices. You've probably seen all of the police cars up and down the motorways in those Volvo estates. We're delivering the technology in ANPR within that, and you've got your fixed cameras, which typically sit on motorway gantries as well. So we've got big success stories in that, one of them being West Midlands Police, who are the second largest force in the country. And we've delivered all of their ANPR infrastructure via 3-4G over the last couple of years. So I thought I'd just highlight and separate out ANPR for you guys, just to give you a broad understanding on where we see the market at present. So why are ANPR solution providers turning to cellular connectivity? So as I said earlier, it's down to Wireless Logic to educate, but provide partners with value. So one of the things we provide is security measures. So we're able to provide security of that data securely on VPN and APN infrastructure. And with our rapid deployment measures, what we're able to do is give customers the ability to roll out inactive SIMs, active test SIMs, and being able to, with our customers, we're typically talking thousands, tens of thousands of SIMs. So it's about how they can deploy quite quickly, but we're able to give partners the ability to have inactive, active, and active SIMs at leisure. So that's the rapid deployment piece. And the multiple use of networks, our branding, as you can see, in the early days started out as, well, it's Vodafone, Orange, O2, and Free, but obviously we've added multiple other networks globally. But we have a platform that ultimately can manage all multiple networks, and it's about us delivering to partners where if they're struggling for Vodafone, we can give them O2, we can give them free EE and non-steered roaming SIMs as well. Cost management, so we have billing that can enable aggregation on certain tariffs. So when we create bespoke tariffs, we're able to group cameras up. So if you've got, say for instance, 10 cameras on 3 gig, then effectively you have 30 gig to share between your power users and your low users. And resilience is more to do with our backbone infrastructure. So within London, we've got 2 co-located data centers, so no single point of failure within our networks that are all joined with all of our MNOs, mobile network operators. I just thought I'd highlight a diagram that, you know, out in the field. If you can't see what this would look like, then you've ultimately got your application, which would typically be hooked into a power source and a free 4G router, and Wireless Logic is supplying the connectivity layer into that router for communication to customers' PCs or end servers. So that's how we typically would address this for all existing and new potential partners within ANPR. So the key three principles that we have at Wireless Logic are around: one, connect. So we're able to support 2, 3, 4G bearer services across all of our global, local, and multi-network SIMs. It's about us understanding the customer's need to know if they need local or multi-network, but ultimately we're able to give them 2, 3, 4G on all of our network operators. So when they're needing high data consumption, which in ANPR is very data heavy, we're able to fit within the bracket of 3, 4G and soon to be 5G. The control piece is around the SIM management. So when you've got hundreds of devices out in the field, it's important that customers can view their usage, can bar SIMs, can put triggers in place if things are getting spiked, and we can do things such as custom fields as well. So when you're rolling out high volume levels of SIM cards, you're able to see that's for a Next or that's for a Waitrose. So the complete management is down to the customer, which we have our own SimPro platform that is SIM provisioning across 35 MNOs available for customers. The secure piece, NetPro, is more about the security where we can deliver internet access securely from our data centers to customers' endpoints. Over the last 6 months, we've had good news where we've been approved as ISO 27001. So when we're talking to lots of blue light organizations and public sectors, we have lots of certificates and certification that suits our partners. So moving on to some of our case studies. So West Midlands Police, which have been a customer now for 5-6 years, they had the wrong SIMs, typically from when they first deployed ANPR cameras. And one of the struggles they had was they couldn't get remote access because they were going through a public APN. So everything that Wireless Logic provide is built around a private APN. So what we're able to do is support customers with static private IP addressing, and we were able to take all of West Midlands traffic and route to their end servers. And obviously the aggregation piece, which I highlighted earlier, gives them the ability to roll out high-end SIM cards and huge data bundles as well. And another one of our success stories is Siemens. So again, these guys used broadband connections. Siemens have been with us now probably 10 years, and they were concerned about network coverage. So these guys actually do site surveys around major towns and cities, and we give them all fixed UK networks to get the best signal strength possible, and they use SimPro for the ability to manage on each of their network operators. Also, again, bill shock, we're there to mitigate. So with SimPro and usage alerts, we're able to give that customer complete access 24/7, when that SIM was last connected, what is it using, and who that SIM belongs to, council, town, end user. So these are kind of the topics, areas we would advise would be best suited for developing an ANPR application. So resilient connectivity for us is key. It's about the right network choice. There's no point having a 1-bar Vodafone SIM on Vodafone if we can give you 5 bars on EE. So we're kind of network agnostic from that side. And with our private APNs, we're able to give customers 99.89 service uptime on our infrastructure. The right hardware. So Wireless Logic actually acquired a hardware partner 2-3 years ago, and we're able now, not just through our connectivity and managed services, we can deliver the right router spec for dedicated cameras out in the field. So this is what we would call a plug and play solution. Customers can now take a camera from a manufacturer, but also the router from Wireless Logic along with the connectivity side. But again, it's down to us educating the customer to find out what device is suited for specific cameras. Obviously, the lower costs. Everything we do is built around an OPEX model. So when we're talking to customers on a flat line rental each month, you typically get access to data, private APN infrastructure, management of that data, and usage alerting. The secure data transfer, obviously with different customers, we have 3 or 4 different solutions that provide VPN access. So it's about us creating the right spec of solution. And with Siemens and West Midlands as examples, they had a different range of technical requirements. As highlighted earlier, we've had success with Blue Light. So Blue Light services, the first thing they'll ask you is, are you ISO 27001 accredited? And do you have the specific guidelines within the National Cyber Security Centre? The good news is we do. So we have certificates within our VPNs that allow us to already get a tick in the box when we're delivering data securely over the internet. What is the future of ANPR? So I put this together a few days ago, but I think it's fair to say ANPR will just continue growing in the 3 areas that we've discussed. But what we would probably see over the next year or 2 is movement towards electric vehicles, and also governments tackling pollution in certain towns and cities. So you'll see from that map, we've already got a route towards zones possible, and proposed zones where cities are putting potential ANPR in for low emissions. You'll obviously see in the green where we've got 4 areas already that are deploying ANPR low emissions to tackle the issue around pollution, which obviously we hear about in the news all the time. So this is where we kind of feel within its kind of niche way of thinking is, yes, we see low emissions as a big driving force in the next couple of years, especially with combustion engines being phased out as well. I think we're led to believe certain countries in Europe is going to be between 2025 and 2030. And that's it for me. If anyone's got any questions on what I've outlined or want to revisit some of the slides, I'm happy to go through that with you guys.
Hey, Justin, that was brilliant. Thank you very much, and great to see the accreditations that you've got now with the security, because that does give you a great sort of step ahead a number of your competition. We've got a question here from Amit. Justin, you talked about provide best SIM network to your customers, Siemens. How you decide which SIM network is the best? How do you manage the switch to the best MNOs?
Yeah, good question. So typically our customers will go out to site So both for Siemens and West Midlands, they would go to site with what we call a GSM signal checker, and the engineers would go to site in advance and check for best coverage. So we typically see customers take 70% or 80% on a fixed UK network. Where they can't fill the gaps or there's a signal discrepancy, we then would provide EE, O2 or 3. But we've also, over the last couple of years, started to provide non-steered roaming SIMs. So non-steered roaming SIMs will come slightly at a premium because you're getting 3 to 4 networks on a single SIM, but it's the ability where you're not having to be reliant on a fixed network. It should work in any given location.
Is there a higher cost of that though with that network roaming side, because it sort of falls onto a roaming charge rather than
slightly, yes. You know, as our economies grow with the network providers, then yes, ultimately things will. I mean, it's different to say, Paul, 5 years ago, roaming was very expensive on all kind of bespoke tariffs, but because we've got good relationships, and we should do roughly about 500,000 SIMs on our non-steered roaming agreements this year, we're able to pass good costings down to our partners. So there's a range of networks, but ultimately partners will use GSM site survey signal checkers to make sure they have the best coverage.
And do you enable your customers with any tools with that coverage checker in that location to enable automation between the networks?
Say that again, sorry, Paul.
Do you enable through your platform any capabilities to be able to control either by cost or by coverage or latency, bandwidth, through your platform?
So through the platform, we have a help section that enables customers to do site surveys, and that's via postcodes. So you can physically go to site if you're an engineer, or we use a heat map analysis of all the network providers. It's public facing, so it's opensignal.com.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately all of the heat map analysis of 3-4G within all postcodes across the UK.
Okay, so this leads on quite nicely to a question by Matthew Roberts, which he's asking what kind of bandwidth does the ANPR require for backhaul? So if you imagine with video, and depending on if they've adopted edge technology and enabling the inference on the device at the edge, so it's the data that's coming through rather than the actual stream of video, because when you start to stream that video, it does eat up an awful lot of latency and requires bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, so ANPR, the reason I've decided to do this is because it's just been one area I've most enjoyed within wireless logic. And I think the reason for that is all data applications are very data heavy. So you don't have to deploy hundreds of thousands of SIMs. You can deliver tens of thousands of SIMs on 1, 2, 3 gig tariffs for imaging. But if you're needing live streaming, then you're looking at 5 to 10, if not 20 gig per site. So you are looking at data heavy applications, but yes, it's typically around the 1 to 3 gig tipping point is what we would build as a per SIM per device model for each camera. Yeah.
So I mean, sort of what resonates there with me actually is and a selfless pun for my dev kit, VisiEye and other products we have at AD-Link, is you could actually enable the computing of the image at the edge. So actually it's just the inferenced outcome data, so the number plate, for example, to come back. So that dramatically reduces, and you could even reduce it down to a still image of that vehicle rather than a stream of video, again reducing that requirement for the amount of data that's being transferred.
Yeah, and also, Paul, we do dual SIM routers. I highlighted that we're a partner of routers. So when we're delivering to a car park management operator, most of these guys now are taking dual SIM. So they either take a Vodafone and a free SIM. So you've got effectively two networks in a router, but you can, and most of our partners now are looking at becoming smarter and putting in a Vodafone SIM with a UK roaming as backup. So in theory, you've got all angles covered for coverage.
Yeah, for coverage, and depending on if the streaming or computing the data at the edge. Amit's raised a very interesting question here. Great question, Amit. Is there a limitation on how much vehicles per second can an ANPR system handle? Is the ANPR analysis real time?
What was the first part to that?
Is there a limitation on how many vehicles per second a system can handle? And is the ANPR analysis real time?
Right. So we're effectively wireless logic are the pipe. So the data from the cameras is what we can provide real time. So if a customer was to do usage on the 6th of October, that data within the mobile network will be able to support that customer with usage today. In terms of vehicles, that would be probably a question for one of our camera OEMs or software partners. We're just delivering the data of the actual traffic. But yeah, that I can actually find out through one of our partners. But a router typically for some car parks can get up to 4 cameras.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ANPR definitely resonates with a solution I came across a few years ago that I was quite impressed with, which was actually by WillPay, which was using sensors in a car park to create a new commercial model where you would bid for your parking as you're driving towards the city, and it would then that nav with a car's parking space. When in essence, actually, what you should be doing is utilizing vision, because they've predominantly got the car parks covered with cameras already, and then the camera as a sensor rather than installing sensors on each parking location. So yeah, really interesting. Sorry,
go on, Paul.
No, I was going to say, does anybody else have any questions for Justin? And straight into an echo chamber. Hey, Justin, thanks very much. That was really educational. Really appreciate
no worries.
And your talk tonight. It's absolutely brilliant. So as always, I'm going to do a selfless pitch. Visi AI, my product, which is available on arrow.com, or you can go to go250.ai website, our sponsors. Wrong side, over there. If you go to the go250.ai website, click on the Visi AI button, and it will take you to the arrow.com website to purchase. The product is now standalone, no cloud required, which is quite timely for the season of autumn here in the UK, where there's plenty of cloud. Please do follow us on Twitter at IoT North U, and on LinkedIn at IoT North. And please do register on our Vision community if you're interested in all the great stuff to do with Vision, as both talks have covered. Go250.ai is that community to help you to get started with that and using great dev kits like Visi AI. I'd just like to say a quick thank you to John Stavely, who's been helping me, who's originally from the IoT Leeds community that's become part of IoT North. John, I really appreciate your support and helping talks being organised over the coming months. It's great. Thank you very much. Our next talk is on November the 3rd, 6 p.m. I'll be announcing next week who we have lined up for that. And that leaves it for me to say thank you and good night. Thanks for your time, everybody.